Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is some of the applications of rational equations. So all the stuff that we've been doing when we've been adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, simplifying complex fractions, there are some applications that go with this. Um, and we're going to do a few examples, and then you guys are going to get a chance to do a couple of them on your own. The biggest thing is really understanding the vocabulary and what's going on in the problem. That's going to be the hardest part. Setting up the equations isn't so bad, and if you're okay with what we've been doing, solving them isn't that bad either. So we'll go over 3 examples, and then the other ones will be for you guys to try. All right, example 1. A group of girls decide to go on a trip to the beach, and the organizers said that the bus would cost $360 to rent. The organizer also told them that if they got 3 more girls to go on the trip, each girl could pay $6 less, which they ended up doing. How many girls ended up going on the trip? So let's kind of go back and look at what's actually happening here. So it tells us that there's a group of girls, so it doesn't actually tell us how many the original amount of girls was. Um, so this right here, oops, doesn't actually tell us how many there are. It just says that there's a group. Because we don't know the original amount of girls, we're going to call that X. And that's the original amount of girls that were going. And then it says um, the bus is going to cost $360 to rent. So it doesn't really matter how many girls go. The bus is $360. So we know that much. The bus is $360. Okay, so that's given. It doesn't matter how many girls are going. However, what we do know is that the organizer tells them if they get just 3 more girls to go, each girl can pay $6 less than what they are actually paying now. So just for an example, let's just say that there are 5 girls going on the trip. And whatever 360 divided by 5 gives you 72, I think. So it'd be $72. Well, if they got just 3 more people and now they're up to 8 people, then they would each pay $6 less. That's not the actual answer to the problem. It's just a general idea. So what we need to figure out is how many girls actually ended up going on the trip. So what we need to do is we need to set up an expression, first of all, for the cost per person if there's the original amount of girls. So the original amount of girls was X. The cost of the bus is $360. Well, if you want to figure out how much it is per person, it's $360 divided by X, divided by the number of people. So the original cost would be 360 divided by X. That's how much it would be if they don't get anybody else. If they do get some additional people to go, this cost, this right here, which is the cost, is going to decrease, according to this, by $6 per person. So each one of them is going to pay $6 less. Well, this right here is the cost in red. They're circled in red. That's the cost for one person to go on the bus. So that one person could pay $6 less if they get 3 more girls to go on the bus. So this whole expression right over here that's going to be the same thing as the amount of money that it's going to cost if we get 3 more girls to go. Well, if we get 3 more girls to go, that's going to be X plus 3. So if I want to find out the cost that it would be for if we get 3 more girls to go, that's the same thing as $360, still costs $360 to go on the bus total, divided by X plus 3. Those expressions are the same. All right, so let's check to make sure that this is actually true. So again, let's kind of label this stuff. Maybe it'll make it easier. This right here is the cost per person if only the original amount go. If they get 3 more people to go, this is the cost if 3 more people go. This cost right here and this cost would not be the same unless I subtracted that $6, because that's what it's going to cost if we get those 3 more people to go. So now these two expressions should be the same. All right, so let's go ahead, because it does say we want to find out how many girls ended up going on the trip. So let's figure that out. If we look at this expression, here, let me go ahead and write it again, a little cleaner here. 360 over x minus 6 equals 360 over x plus 3. We want to get rid of these fractions. We don't want to deal with all these fractions, so let's multiply both sides by our common denominator, which is x plus 3. All right, you guys have done enough practice on this. Hopefully this is starting to sink in a little bit. If I multiply x and x plus 3 times my first fraction, the x's will go away. Right, first fraction, these two things would go away. I'm going to get rid of those. And what that would leave me with is 360 times x plus 3. When I multiply the x and the x plus 3 times the 6, it's not a fraction, so it just multiplies across. So it's negative 6 times x plus 3. And then the last one, if I multiply the x and the x plus 3 times the last fraction, the x plus 3's here are going to go away, leaving me with just 360 times x. So I get, 360x. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this. If I distribute, we're going to get 360x plus 360 times 3 is 1080, I believe. Hopefully I did that right. Distributing the negative 6x to the next parentheses, we get minus 6x squared minus 18x equals 360x. All right, I could combine like terms on both sides, or I could realize that 360x is going to subtract out on both sides. If I subtract 360x from both sides, those go away. It does leave you with 0 on the right. So I end up with this expression, negative 6x squared minus 18x plus 1080 equals 0. All right, I'm going to have to factor that to solve it. So I believe that 6 goes into everything. So I'm going to actually factor out a negative 6 so I can get rid of the negative out in front of the x squared. So that'll give me x squared. Factoring a negative 6 out of the middle one gives me plus 3x. And let's see, 1080 divided by negative 6 is going to be minus 1, goes into 48 8 times, minus 180. And then I'm going to have to go ahead and factor that inside. This is a kind of a big number to factor, but it does work in this case. You could use your calculators for all this. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. So this will be x, this will be x, and if I am not mistaken, the numbers here are 15 and 12. And to make that positive 3, the 15 has to be positive, the 12 has to be negative. And you can double check that to make sure. That means that either x is negative 15 or x is 12. Well, negative 15 doesn't make any sense in this because we're talking about the number of people going on a bus ride. So negative 15 doesn't even make sense. It's a solution to the problem. It just doesn't make sense to our problem. So x is 12. Well, x, going all the way back up to the top, is the original amount of girls going. We want to know how many girls ended up going. Well, we know that they got enough to make it $6 less, so that was the x plus 3. So in this case, since x is 12, we know that there were 15 girls going on the trip, adding 3 to our x. All right, not the easiest thing to see. So if you have to, you can always go back and watch this again tonight. This will be up on YouTube for you guys. Check that out. Okay, number 2. A little bit easier because all we're doing is setup, I believe, on number 2. You and your friends are ordering takeout. Each meal costs $11.25, and there's a delivery fee of $2.75. If X people order meals, what would the average cost per meal be? So you have to remember what average is. Average is the total number of something divided by however many there were. Well, it says X people are ordering meals. So each person is going to order a meal. Each meal costs $11.25. It tells us that. There's a delivery fee of $2.75. That's a flat fee. It's not $2.75 per meal that's ordered. It's just $2.75 for the entire delivery. So if you order 7 different meals, you're going to pay 7 times $11.25, and then you're going to have a $2.75 delivery charge total. It's not per 7 people. So in order for us to find out the average cost per meal, well, everybody, no matter how much it is paying $11.25. We're going to divide the $2.75 by the number of people, because that's going to be the average number of the average cost for the delivery fee. So in other words, think of it like this. You're going to pay $11.25 for your meal. You and, I don't know, 5 people, we're just going to guess, you and 5 people are going to split the delivery fee to make it easy on yourself. So you would just divide $2.75 by 5, and you would each tack on that much extra money to your $11.25 if you're splitting the delivery fee. Well, it's the same idea. We're all going to pay $11.25 because that's the cost of our meal. But we each have to add our portion of the delivery fee. Well, that's $2.75 divided by however many of us there are. That looks like 2 times 75. $2.75 divided by however many of us there are. That is an expression for the average cost. So we each pay our $11.25, and then we're each going to pay our portion of the delivery fee. We'll split that between however many of us there are. That's the average cost per meal. All right, that one's not so bad. That could also be written in a different way, just to make sure you guys see this. We could have also said, well, each one of us is going to pay $11.25, so we're each going to pay that. So it's $11.25 times however many of us there are. We're going to have to add this delivery fee. This would be just the cost of the meal right there. $2.75 is the fixed charge, the $11.25 per person. That's the cost of the whole meal. If we wanted to figure out what the average cost was, we would take that whole thing and divide by X. Believe it or not, this expression and this expression are exactly the same thing. You could actually split this one right here into 1125x over x plus 275 over x, and it would simplify to this one right here. They are the same thing. Whichever way you see works out. All right, we're going to take the ideas from examples 1 and 2 into example 3. For a fundraising project, the Math Club is publishing a calendar. The cost of the images is $900. That sounds like a fixed fee to me. Additionally, the cost of printing each calendar is $3.50. So every time we print a calendar, we're going to have to tack on another $3.50. So again, what it sounds like to me is this. The cost is going to be the fixed fee, which is $900, plus $3.50 per calendar. That's the cost of the calendars. What it says is write a model to determine the average cost per calendar as a function of the number of calendars printed. Use the model to estimate the number of calendars they need to print before the average cost drops to $8 per calendar. So obviously, the more calendars you can print, the average cost is going to go down, because you're going to sell them and your average cost is going to go down the more money you make. So if this right here is the cost and I want the average cost, it's actually really simple. Divide by the number of calendars, right? We took the total amount that it would cost to do the entire amount of calendars, and then we divided by the number of calendars. That's the average cost. So now that becomes the average cost. But we want to know specifically how much it's going to be, or I'm sorry, how many calendars we have to print, which is X, to get down to $8 per calendar. So we want this average cost to be equivalent to 8. And now we have an equation. All right, well, in this case, you could also think of it as being a common denominator, or you could just simply think of it as a cross multiplication. You'll multiply the X times the 8, and what we get is 900 plus 350X equals 8X. And now we can simply solve for X. We can subtract 350X to both sides, and we'll get 900 equals $4.50 X. And then to solve for X, we'll divide both sides by $4.50. And we will get 900 divided by 450. 450 goes into that twice. Move the 200. So it would take 200 calendars for us to get an average cost of $8 per calendar. All right, these are, like I said, not necessarily the easiest problems to do. You have, I think it's 2 of them. Yeah, 2 of them to try on your own here. Go back, use these examples that we did, try and figure them out, work together, and if you guys are still having a hard time, again, go back and rewatch the video or the parts that you need to pick up on what's going on. It really is, again, just about deciphering what the words mean and deciphering the information to set up the equation. Okay, you guys should all kind of have an idea of what average is, and you've been doing enough of these simplifying equations now that you should be able to follow through with that. Okay, you guys have your assignment.